Welcome to the English Tales, where every story whispers a little magic and every word weaves a world of wonder. Settle in and let the tales begin. Today, listen to Two Old Men by Leo Tolstoy. In a village, there lived two farmers named Arjun and Mohan. Arjun was wealthy and Mohan was an ordinary man. Both of them had long planned to go on a pilgrimage to Badrinath. Arjun was well-mannered, courageous, and determined. He had served as the village head twice and had done much good work. He had 2 sons and 1 grandson. At the age of 60, his beard had still not turned grey. Mohan was cheerful, kind-hearted, and sociable. He had 2 sons, one of whom lived at home and the other was away working. Mohan himself stayed at home and did farming. Both had made a resolve to go on the Badrinath pilgrimage, but many days had passed since they made the decision. Arjun never found the time. When one task finished, another came up. First, he had to arrange for his grandson's wedding. Then the younger son's marriage came up, followed by the construction of a house. One day, while sitting on a wooden bench outside, the 2 old men began a conversation. Mohan, why, my friend, when do you plan to go on the pilgrimage? Arjun, wait a little. This year hasn't been favorable. I thought the house would be ready for just 100 rupees, but I've already spent 300 and the work is still not done. We'll go next year. Mohan, it's not good to delay an auspicious tasks. I believe it's best to go immediately. The days are favorable. Arjun, the days are good, but what will I do about the house? Who can look after it? Mohan, is there no one to take care of it? Give it to your elder son. Arjun, what can I rely on him for? Mohan, what will happen when you die? Isn't it better to hand it over while you're still alive and enjoy your life peacefully? Arjun, that's true, but everyone wants to finish a task once they've started it. Mohan, then no task ever gets completed, there's always something left. Just the other day, the women were preparing for Ram Navami for many days. Some were applying lime and others were grinding flour. Then suddenly Ram Navami arrived. My daughter-in-law said, "It's God's grace that festivals come on their own. Otherwise, we'd be stuck with preparations forever." Arjun, one more thing. I've spent a lot of money on this house. Right now, I'm short of cash. At least I need 100 rupees. Or how will we go on the pilgrimage? Mohan, laughing. The richer a person gets, the poorer he feels. You're worried about money. Let it be. I'm telling you, I don't even have 100 rupees right now. But when the decision to go is made, the money will surely come from somewhere. Just tell me, when are we going? Arjun, you must have saved up money somewhere, or how will it come? Tell me. Mohan, some from my house, some from selling goods. A neighbor wants to buy a door frame. I'll sell it to him cheaply. Arjun, you'll regret selling it cheaply. Mohan, I don't regret anything except sin. What is dearer than the soul? Arjun, all this is fine, but it's also not right to forget household responsibilities. Mohan, and forgetting the soul is even worse. When a person makes up his mind about something, he should not leave it unfinished. In the end, the decision to go was made. 4 days later, when it was time to depart, Arjun began instructing his eldest son on how to lay the roof of the house, how to stack the husk in the barn, how to sell the grain at the market, and how to carefully handle the money so it wouldn't be lost. He also emphasized that the household should be managed in such a way that no harm would come to it. His instructions seemed endless. In contrast, Mohan simply told his wife, "You are clever, keep working carefully." Mohan left the house with a cheerful face, and as soon as he left the village, he forgot all the household troubles. His goal was to keep his companion happy, travel peacefully, and return home content. As he walked along the road, he would either sing a hymn dedicated to God or narrate stories of great saints. Whenever he met anyone on the road or in an inn, he spoke with great humility. Arjun, on the other hand, walked quietly, but his mind was restless. He was constantly worried about the house. The son is inexperienced, who knows what he might do? I forgot to tell him something. Oh, I hope the roof is being put up properly. These thoughts constantly haunted him, to the point that sometimes he almost decided to turn back. After walking for a month, they reached the mountains. The mountain people were great hosts, and until now, they had been living on valuable grain. But now, they began to receive hospitality from others. As they continued their journey, they reached a land where a terrible famine had struck. The crops had all dried up, and not a single grain had been grown. The rich had become impoverished, and the people of the land, with no means of sustenance, had fled to beg for food elsewhere. Here they faced some hardships as food was scarce and very expensive. One night they rested at a place, and the next day, while continuing their journey, they came across a village. Outside the village, there was a small hut. Mohan, feeling tired, said, "I am thirsty. You go ahead. I'll drink water from this hut and catch up with you." Arjun replied, "All right, drink water and join me soon. I'll go slowly." When Mohan reached the hut, he saw a man lying in the sun in front of it. He asked the man for water, but the man didn't respond. Mohan assumed that the man might be sick. As he approached, he heard the sound of a child crying from inside the hut. The door was open and he went inside. He saw an old woman sitting on the ground with only a sheet covering her head. Near her, a starving child was crying out for bread. "Roti, roti." By the stove, a woman was writhing in agony, her eyes closed and her throat choked. Upon seeing Mohan, the old woman asked, "Who are you? What do you want? We have nothing." Mohan replied, "I am thirsty and seeking water." The old woman said, "There is neither a pot nor anyone to fetch water. There is nothing here. Go away, follow your own path." Mohan asked, "Can any of you help that woman?" The old woman responded, "No one can help. Outside my son is dying from hunger, and here we are dying from hunger too." While this conversation was taking place, the man who had been lying outside also staggered in and said, "Both time and disease have killed us. This child has been hungry for several days. What can I do?" He started crying, his sobs racking his body. Without hesitation, Mohan took some bread from his bag and placed it before them. The old woman said, "Their throats are dry. Go outside and bring some water." Mohan asked her where the well was, went outside and brought back water. They ate the bread and drank the water, but the woman by the stove continued to lie there, writhing in pain. Mohan then went to the village, bought some lentils and rice and made khichdi, which he fed to everyone. Then the old woman said, "Brother, what can I tell you? We were poor to begin with, and then the famine struck. Our suffering increased even more. Initially, the neighbors lent us some food, but what could they do? They themselves began starving, so how could they give us anything?" The man said, "I went out to work, and for 2 or 3 days I managed to find something, but then no one hired me. The woman and the girl started begging. There was a famine, and no one was giving alms. We tried many ways, but nothing worked. In desperation, we started eating grass. And that's why my wife is lying in agony by the stove." The old woman added, "For many days I tried doing some work, but how long could I go on? Hunger and disease have taken their toll. You can see the condition for yourself." Hearing their plight, Mohan thought it would be best to stay here for the night and meet his companion tomorrow. The next morning, he went into the village and bought some food and supplies. There was nothing in the house. He stayed there and worked as if it were his own home. After 2 or 3 days, everyone began to recover, and the woman was able to sit up. On the 4th day, it was Ekadashi. Mohan thought that he would sit with them in the evening and have a light meal, and then leave the next morning. He went to the village and brought milk, fruits, and all the necessary items for the old woman, while he himself went to the temple to offer prayers. These people had mortgaged their land to a landlord during the time of the famine to survive. When Mohan went to the temple, the young farmer went to the landlord and humbly said, "Chaudhary ji, at this time it is beyond my means to repay the loan with money and free the land. If you allow me to sow the crops this monsoon, I can repay the debt through hard labor." But the landlord was not one to listen. He replied, "You cannot sow without paying money. Go do your work." The young man returned home disappointed. Meanwhile, Mohan had also arrived and overheard the conversation. He thought to himself, if this landlord doesn't even allow them to sow the crops, how will he protect their lives? If I leave them in this condition, they will become prey to death. I won't leave tomorrow, but the day after. Mohan was now in a great dilemma. Neither could he stay nor could he leave. That night he lay awake thinking, this has become a serious issue. First there's food and water, then freeing the land, and next buying a pair of cows and oxen. Mohan, what kind of trouble have you gotten into? He felt like leaving them and going, but compassion prevented him from doing so. Lost in thought, he fell asleep. In his dream, he saw himself wanting to leave, but someone held him back. When he turned around, the child was asking for bread. He immediately woke up and said to himself, "No, I won't leave. This dream is telling me that I must free their land, buy cows and oxen, and take care of everything before I leave." And the next morning, he went to the landlord and paid money to free their land. While he was returning with a cow and 2 oxen from a farmer, he overheard women talking on the road. At first, we thought he was an ordinary man. He had just come to drink water, but now we heard that he has freed the land and bought cows and oxen. We must seek the blessings of such a noble soul. Hearing their praise, Mohan quietly moved on. When he reached the hut with the cows and oxen, the farmer asked, "Father, where did you get these from?" Mohan replied, "I got them from such and such farmer at a very cheap price. Go, tie them in the barn and give them some fodder." That night, when everyone had gone to sleep, Mohan quietly got up, left the house, and set off towards Badrinarayan's path. After walking 3 miles, Mohan sat under a tree, took out his wallet, and began counting the money, only to find that very little was left. He thought to himself, "With this little money, reaching Badrinarayan is impossible. Begging is a sin. Arjun will surely reach there, and I hope that on my behalf, he will offer some food. I, however, cannot fulfill this vow in this lifetime. Well, it is God's will. He is very merciful and will undoubtedly forgive sinners like me." Having thought this, he walked around the village making sure no one saw him, and then headed back home. When he reached the village, his family was overjoyed to see him and asked why he had returned. Mohan replied that he had been separated from Arjun and his money had been stolen, so he had to come back. Everything was fine at home. There was no trouble. When Arjun's family heard of Mohan's return, they asked him where he had left Arjun. He replied, 3 days before reaching Badrinarayan, I fell behind Arjun. Someone stole my money and reaching Badrinarayan became impossible, so I had to return." Everyone laughed at Mohan, mocking him for not reaching Badrinarayan and for losing his money along the way. Mohan got back to his household chores and the matter was soon forgotten. Now hear the rest of the story. When Mohan went to drink water, Arjun sat a little farther and began waiting for his companion. Evening arrived, but Mohan had not yet come. Arjun thought to himself, "What happened? Why hasn't my companion come? I must have dozed off. Perhaps he has gone ahead. But if he left from here, he should have been visible. Should I go back and check in case he went further? But if I do that, it will be impossible to meet him. No, I must keep going. I am sure I will meet him at the next resting place." On the way, Arjun asked several people, "Have you seen a short, dark-skinned man?" But no one had any information. Even when he reached the resting place, there was no sign of Mohan. The next day, thinking he would surely meet Mohan at Devprayag, Arjun continued on his journey. On the way, Arjun met a sage who had just returned from a pilgrimage to Jagannath. The sage was now traveling to Badrinarayan for the second time. They stayed together at a resting place that night and continued their journey together. Upon reaching Devprayag, Arjun asked the priest there about Mohan, but no one had any information. All the pilgrims gathered at Devprayag and the next day they all continued on their journey, stopping for the night at another resting place. A heavy downpour began, accompanied by the crackling of thunder and lightning, causing everyone to shiver in fear. They stayed awake through the night, and with great difficulty the day finally dawned. By noon, all the pilgrims reached Badrinarayan. The priest who had joined them from Devprayag had accompanied them along the way. In Badrinarayan, it is customary for the temple to provide food to the pilgrims on the first day, and during that time, they also have to declare the amount they wish to contribute, with a minimum of 1¼ rupees. After this, everyone went to rest in the priest's houses. The next morning, they all got up early and went for darshan, viewing the deity. Arjun and the sage stayed together in the same place. After the evening aarti, when they returned to their place, the sage said, "Someone has stolen my wallet." Arjun's mind was filled with the sinful thought that the sage was lying. No one had stolen his money, He probably never had any money at all. But immediately he regretted this thought, realizing that having such a perception about a person was a great sin. He tried to reason with himself, but his mind kept focusing on the sage. Even in such a sacred place, his thoughts remained impure. At that moment, the bell for the evening aarti rang, and both of them went to the temple for darshan. The temple was crowded, and Arjun closed his eyes and began to chant prayers to the Lord. However, his hand rested on his wallet, as the impression left by the sage's money being stolen still lingered in his mind. How difficult it is for the heart to be purified. After finishing his prayers, Arjun opened his eyes and began to gaze at the deity. To his astonishment, he saw Mohan standing very close to the idol. "Hey, Mohan, no, how can Mohan be here? I have searched the entire way." Seeing Mohan prostrating in reverence, Arjun was certain that it was indeed him. Perhaps he had taken a different route to reach here. "Well, it's good that I found my companion." The aarti was over and the pilgrims began to leave. Arjun kept his hand on his wallet, afraid someone might steal his money. He started looking for Mohan but could not find him anywhere. The next morning, when Arjun went to the temple again, he saw Mohan standing with folded hands before the Lord. Arjun wanted to approach him, but as soon as he moved forward, Mohan disappeared. On the third day, the same thing happened. Arjun thought that he would stand at the temple gate, as all the pilgrims would exit from there, and he would catch Mohan. So he did just that. But when all the pilgrims left, Mohan was nowhere to be found. After staying in Badri Narayan for a week, Arjun returned home. As Arjun was walking, the thoughts of the old troubles at home kept returning to his mind. A year had passed. So much could have happened in that time. It's said that 6 months can pass in the blink of an eye, and who knows what might have happened at home. What about the crops? How are the animals being cared for? He began to worry. As he walked, Arjun reached the hut where Mohan had gone to drink water. A young girl came out and grabbed his shirt, saying, Grandfather, come inside." Arjun tried to pull his shirt away, but a woman from inside called out, "Sir, please rest here after eating. You can leave tomorrow." He went inside and thought to himself, "Mohan came here to drink water. Maybe these people can tell me something about him." The woman washed Arjun's hands and feet and served him food. Arjun began to bless her. She replied, "Grandfather, we don't know how to serve guests. It was a traveler who taught us. We had forgotten the Lord, and we were in such a dire condition that if that old traveler hadn't come, we would have all died. He came here asking for water. When he saw our plight, he stayed. Our field was mortgaged, and he freed it. He bought cows and oxen and gathered supplies, then left, and we don't know where he went." Just then, another woman came in and upon hearing this said, "That man wasn't just a traveler, he was a deity. He showed us mercy and saved us. Otherwise, we would have died. When he came here asking for water, I told him we had none. When I think of that moment, my body shakes." A little girl spoke up. He opened his pot and took water from the well. Everyone in the hut began to talk about Mohan. That night, a farmer arrived and joined in the conversation, saying, "That traveler gave us the gift of life. We now know what the Lord is and what selfless service means. He made us human beings again." Arjun then realized the reason why Mohan had appeared in the temple at Badri Narayan. He was certain that Mohan's journey had been successful. A few days later, Arjun reached home. His son was drunk and lying down. Everything at home was in chaos. Arjun scolded his son, who replied, "Who told you to go on the pilgrimage? You shouldn't have gone." In anger, Arjun slapped his son. The next day, when Arjun was on his way to meet the village head, he met Mohan's wife on the road. She greeted him. "Brother, are you well? Did you go to Badri Narayan?" Arjun replied, "Yes, I went, but I lost track of Mohan on the way. Did he return home safely?" She said, "He returned several months ago. We were all very sad without him. The boy was miserable without his father. The house was empty without him." Arjun asked, "Is he at home now, or has he gone somewhere?" She replied, "No, he's at home." Arjun went inside and called out, "Ram Ram, brother Mohan, Ram Ram." Mohan replied, "Ram Ram, "Come, brother, have you been to the temple?" Arjun replied, "Yes, I have. But I can't say whether the pilgrimage was successful or not. When I was returning, I stayed at the hut where you went to drink water." Mohan changed the subject and Arjun remained silent, but in his heart, he was convinced that the greatest pilgrimage is one where a person lives with love and compassion for all beings, always ready to help others. And thank you for joining us on this journey through words and wonder. Until our next tale, stay curious and keep dreaming.